Hey everyone, welcome back to another Genshin analysis video. Version 6.0, version Luna 1, is releasing 2 new artifact sets, as well as 9 new weapons. We are going to cover all, and I mean all, of this new gear in one, hopefully easy to watch video. We'll explore what the gear does, who can best use it, and who can technically use it for all you unconventional players out there. I'll try to keep things brief, but this video is covering a lot of new content. If you're only looking for a specific weapon or artifact, I will have timestamps available. In addition, my description has the general disclaimers, social media links, music credits, and a link to my Discord server. Captions are also available for those who need it. Without further ado, let's talk about all the new gear coming in version Luna 1. So, I actually lied to you. Before we cover the new stuff, we have to cover a new mechanic called Moonsign. Moonsign is basically Nodkrai's version of Night Soul Burst. The more Nodkrai units you have, the higher level your Moonsign is. If you have one Nodkrai character, your Moonsign becomes Nascent Gleam. With 2, it becomes Ascendant Gleam. For simplicity, instead of me constantly saying teams with 1 or 2 Nodkrai units, I'll just refer to single Nodkrai teams as Nascent teams, and double Nodkrai teams as Ascendant teams. Unless it's stated otherwise, the Moonsign effects cannot stack. For example, Lauma has 2 effects based on the team's Moonsign. When she's the sole Nodkrai unit, we have Nascent Gleam, and she allows Bloom, Hyperbloom, and Burgeon to crit. With a second Nodkrai unit, we get Ascendant Gleam. She loses the regular Bloom crits, and instead allows her Lunar Bloom to have boosted crit rate or damage. You'll see a similar effect for the artifacts. Speaking of, let's cover them right now. Our first set is called Night of the Sky's Unveiling. Its 2-piece effect increases EM by 80, and for its 4-piece effect, triggering lunar reactions while the user is on field grants them 15 or 30% crit rate, depending on whether your Moonsign is Nascent or Ascendant. There is a second part to this artifact, which causes both sets to synergize with each other, but I will cover this after we look at the second set. That way you can better understand the purpose of this second effect. For now, we'll just focus on the crit rate. You have 2 conditions to enable. The user of the set has to be on field, and any party member has to trigger a lunar reaction, which means you need at least one of the Nodkrai units who isn't Aino. If you do this, you can start off with 15% crit rate, get a second Nodkrai unit, and you can achieve the 30% crit rate. As of right now, there are 2 units who best use the set. First is Flynn's, who is designed as an on-field DPS. He enables Lunar Charged, or LC, so activating the set should be easy. All you need is a second Nodkrai unit to maximize the bonus. Majority of his damage is also Lunar Charge damage, which makes the EM much more valuable. The other option is Lauma, but with a little disclaimer stamped on top. Lauma mainly serves as a Bloom buffer, with Lunar Bloom damage, or La Bloom as I like to call it, only being accessible through her hold skill. Running an Ascendant team grants her Lunar Bloom damage an additional crit bonus, and maximizing the set results in another 30% crit rate. Overall, if you lean more into her Lunar Bloom damage for her builds, you can get a lot of crit value with an Ascendant team. With that being said, Lauma is a character who can utilize both sets, depending on how you want to build your team comps. So, rest assured, we will come back to her when we look at the other artifact. For other units, this set is a little harder to maximize, but it's still doable. Instead of placing this on one Nodkrai unit who self-enables the set, you'd have to pair your on-fielder with 1 or 2 other Nodkrai units. So unless you're committed to the lunar teams, it's not recommended. Still, here's a few of the meme ideas I came up with. Electro carries with EM synergy like Sino or Kuching could theoretically use this in Lunar Charged or a variant of Lunar Quick Bloom teams. Similarly, Alhaitham and Tainari can also utilize this if you were to run some form of Lunar Quick Bloom. Finally, since lunar reactions, specifically Lunar Charged, work with EM and crit, you could theoretically put this on Animo drivers. They can utilize the set to contribute more Lunar Charge output, but unless you have a second VV user in a double Animo comp, you're losing out on that 60% swirl and 40% res shred effect. Alternatively, characters who have better personal damage could double dip the crit part into their abilities and lunar reactions. For our second set, it's going to be called Silken Moon's Serenade. Its 2-piece grants 20% energy recharge. For its 4-piece, dealing elemental damage grants all party members 60 or 120 EM for 8 seconds based on your party's moon sign. This effect is also off-field friendly. Like the other set, there is a second part to this artifact, but we'll cover that later. The conditions for activating and maximizing the set are the same as the previous. Run a Nascent or Ascendant team, and you can support your party with EM bonuses. Our best users are, once again, Krai units. Ineffa is going to make good use of the set, allowing your party to deal higher LC damage on top of her own LC output. Aino is also an off-field support and Hydra applicator, so she can easily run this set to buff the party, and while she doesn't enable lunar reactions, she does contribute to Moonsign. Finally, we go back to Lauma, who has more of a pro and con aspect to her synergy with the set. If you run her in a Nascent team, she only grants 60 EM to the party, but her previous passive allows bloom-related damage to crit. If you run her in an Ascendant team, she grants 120 EM, but blooms no longer crit. As a final side note, the support set cannot stack, so if I were to run Flynn's, Ineffa, and Aino on the team, you'd want to give Ineffa or Aino a different set. Or if I ran Lauma and Aino on the same team, I'd want to give Lauma the crit set instead, since Aino's already rocking the support set. In terms of the other characters who can technically use this, who's our best choice? The options are better for off-fielders with consistent elemental damage, so that your on-fielder can use the crit set and complete the artifact synergy. Hydra fielders can use this for both lunar reactions, Dendro can use it for LeBloom, then Electro or Animo units can use this for LC. Once again, unless you have a second Animo unit, you're losing VV's benefits. Okay, so now that I've covered both sets, let's circle back and cover that synergy effect between the two. The crit bonus from the Unveiling set is labeled as Gleaming Moon Intent. The EM bonus from the Serenade set is called Gleaming Moon Devotion. Your party will get a 10% lunar reaction damage bonus for every type of Gleaming Moon effect that's active. So, in order to truly maximize the bonus, you not only have to run an Ascendant team for the first effects, you'd have to run one of your non-Krai characters with the crit carry set, and another with the EM support set. Achieving this synergy results in 30% crit rate for the on-fielder, and for the entire party, 120 EM, and 20% lunar damage bonus. These two sets are really incentivizing you to run Ascendant non-Krai teams because of the linked effects of Gleaming Moon. With that being said, the 20% lunar bonus is not the biggest part of either set. Even if you don't have the Gleaming Moon part, the initial effects are already incentivizing Ascendant teams. So if anything, the Gleaming Moon stuff is more icing on the cake. In terms of investment, the main goal when building someone on just one of the sets is to get them in a team with an Ascendant moon sign. If you really care about maximizing that lunar damage bonus, then you have to focus on getting both sets active on the team. Fortunately, it's in the same domain, so farming for these sets should be a lot easier. Now that we've covered the artifacts, we can dive into the new weapons that the new version is releasing. I was originally going to go in the order of 5-star to 4-star weapons, but a lot of these passives are pretty similar, so we're going to bunch them up based on the weapon types instead. Starting off with Catalyst, Lauma's signature, Nightweaver's Looking Glass, has a 542 base attack and a 265 EM substat. Dealing Hydro or Dendro damage grants an EM bonus. If Lunar Bloom is triggered, you get another EM bonus. And as long as both of these EM bonuses are active, the entire party's Bloom, Hyper Bloom, Burgeon, and Lunar Bloom damage is increased. This can't stack with other copies of the weapon, and all of these effects can occur while off-field. Since Lunar Bloom is a reaction that doesn't affect actual Bloom cores, the bonuses for Bloom, Hyper Bloom, and Burgeon are still very relevant. Lauma's also a unit who already buffs these reactions, especially in a Nascent team. This makes it especially good on her. As of right now, there's no reason to run this weapon on anyone else, but let's take a hypothetical scenario. In the future, More units might unlock Lunar Bloom, but won't be a catalyst. In that scenario, it's possible for another catalyst user to make use of the weapon in teams where Lauma is not being used. With that in mind, what units are we looking at? In addition to a Lunar Bloom enabler, you need to have the unit be Dendro or Hydro to proc the first part of the passive. The top user would be Nahida for her EM scaling, then there's Kokomi and Mona, who could be built with EM as an on-field Bloom driver. On a very similar note, the new craftable Catalyst is Bloom related. It has a 454 base attack with a 221 EM substat. This will increase Bloom and LeBloom damage, but if you run an Ascendant team, this bonus is doubled. Just like Lauma's signature, this weapon is mainly usable on Dendro and Hydro units. With that being said, it's more common for Hydro to be the trigger for Bloom reactions, so you might not see Dendro characters like Nahida make use of the Bloom damage buff, but using a Hydro driver like Kokomi, Barbara, and Mona will. Then for Lunar Bloom, Lauma's the only one who can deal this form of damage, so this is a solid free-to-play option for her, if you're not planning to go for the signature. And since we're on the topic of catalysts, let's talk about the new event weapon that'll be available for this version. Etherlight Spindlelute has a 510 base attack with a 45.9% ER substat. After using a skill, you increase EM for 20 seconds. Additionally... Oh, that's it? Oh, okay then. This weapon is pretty universal for any unit who wants to build EM, but the best way to maximize its effect is by giving it to someone who also wants to use the ER substat. A few that came to mind could be Lisa or Sucrose. Yanfei also has energy needs, and her vape teams can use EM. Other direct EM scalers like Nahida, Mizuki, or Seedlali have bursts that aren't necessary for every rotation, but if you want to use your burst every time, this can help address those energy needs. Basically, if a unit needs ER and EM, this weapon will be a great stat stick. Moving on to our polearms, our newest 5-star weapon will be called Bloodsoaked Ruins. It has a 674 base attack and a 22.1% crit rate substat. For 3.5 seconds after using a burst, the user's LC damage is increased. Additionally, after triggering LC, they will gain a crit damage bonus for 6 seconds. They also regain some energy, though this effect can only occur once every 14 seconds. This is Flynn's signature weapon, and his kit works a bit similarly to Varessa. He has two forms of a burst. A big burst with a really sick animation that's making the gooners in my Discord server go berserk, and a mini burst that you can enable after casting his special skill, which consumes less energy and will be Flynn's better route for dealing damage. It's also making the gooners in my Discord server go berserk. Regardless of which type of burst you cast, Flynn's will deal instances of direct lunar charge damage, which are his main source of damage. The LC bonus only lasts for 3.5 seconds, which means Ineffa, another LC unit, can't use the passive very well, which means you're getting extremely low uptime on this buff. It's also not stated that the weapon can trigger its effects while off-field, so unless you play Ineffa as an on-fielder, even the crit damage buff isn't usable on her. So who else can use this? Others aren't really able to use the burst part of the passive because of the low uptime, but as long as you run a team that has lunar charged, which basically means running Ineffa or Flynn's, but mostly Ineffa, you can slap this on any on-fielder for the crit damage bonus. I'm not entirely sure if lunar charge has to be triggered by the user in order to proc, but that's what I'm assuming for now. Our options as a result are Electro, Hydro, or Animo characters. Third place for this weapon is technically Cyno. He would be consistently triggering LC at least once every 6 seconds as an Electro carry, and he does use crit stats. He can also be pretty energy hungry, so that energy every rotation will also be nice. Raiden's also an on-fielder who will make great use of the crit, but while her kit is very energy focused, she has better synergy with energy recharge, not flat energy regen. Unironically, the next character to make decent use of this is Xiao. As an Animo unit, running him in some kind of swirled LC team means he can trigger LC for himself. This gives the crit and energy bonuses that he'll like using. Moving on to the next polearm, it's also an Electro/Lunar Charge weapon. Prospector's Shovel has a 510 base attack and a 41.3% attack substat. It's very similar to the Craftable Catalyst, but instead of Bloom and LeBloom, the damage bonus goes to EC and LC. Once again, in Ascendant teams, you double this bonus. This weapon is a lot more accessible among the viable characters, and you choose to use it in teams where the user deals direct LC damage, or in teams where EC damage is more prevalent. With LC teams, Flynn's and Ineffa make great use of this, especially since their direct LC damage scales with their attack stat. For LC as a regular reaction, you can once again use Cyno, who would contribute more LC compared to other units, since you'd likely have EM build for his Quicken teams. LC as a result gets a nice buff on top of that. Raiden and Xiao can use it in the same vein of being able to contribute LC damage, but it's not that recommended. And on lesser recommended notes, Candace at C6 applies consistent Hydro, so she can maintain uptime on LC contribution, but her scaling is HP, not attack, so the substat is kinda useless. On the flip side, Eon-san can use the attack substat, but her electro application is very low, so she's not contributing much to LC as a reaction. You can also run this in any of these characters for regular EC teams, but the reaction there is super inconsistent, so unless we get a unit who specializes in having consistent EC ownership, you're better off using this for the LC teams. The next weapon is the craftable Claymore, Master Key. It has a 454 base attack and a 61.3% ER substat. When you trigger a reaction, you gain EM for 12 seconds. Run an Ascendant team and this bonus doubles. It's also off-field friendly. Our best units for this are EM scalers. Aino is our first Hydro Claymore, and a good chunk of her kit will be contributing to Hydro-related reactions such as LC or LeBloom. The EM subset will be very good, and her energy needs can also get addressed. This maintains that consistent Hydro up on her burst. Sayu in an LC team can also make good use of this, whether as an on-fielder or off-fielder. Her constant swirls mean constant application in LC, and her EM can contribute to this damage. Kaveh is also an EM scaler, allowing him to make use of this bonus. His Bloom procs, however, can be inconsistent, so I'm not entirely sure how often his EM will contribute to Bloom cores. Moving on to our craftable bow, it's the same thing as the Claymore. 454 base attack, 61.3% ER, and an EM bonus that can be doubled in Ascendant teams. EM scaling bow users are going to be the best for this. Starting off, I'm going to go with my favorite twink, Venti. Swirled EC or LC teams will definitely have him contributing, so you can use this in those scenarios. For Electro units, Fischl can utilize EM for LC or Quicken, but the better of the two bows is Sethos. As a direct EM scaler, he'll double dip that stat into his personal damage, his Quicken damage, LC damage, or Hyperbloom damage. For Dendro units, you could run this on Tighnari and Kale, though they might not contribute much in Bloom procs, so the EM would mainly be used for Quicken teams. For a couple more honorable mentions, you could run this on Oron and Chaska in LC teams. They would contribute consistently with their EM, but I'd say their personal damage is more valuable to build. The last of the craftables is our sword, Serenity's Call. It has a 454 base attack, 61.3% ER substat, and when you trigger a reaction, you get an HP bonus that doubles in Ascendant teams. Starting off, Nilou can use this very well. She is intended to have synergy with Lauma, so I can imagine her utilizing the full HP bonus much more consistently compared to other characters. Keep in mind that Ascendant Lauma teams don't have the Bloom crit, and running her in Nascent teams results in losing that doubled HP buff. Kuki can play well in LC or Hyperbloom teams, but her HP scaling only contributes to healing and personal damage, not her reactions. Kirara can be a solid option in Bloom teams as a Dendro driver, and the HP stat makes her shield much more tanky. I'm also looking at Farina to use this as well in Ascend teams. For my final user, I'm gonna say Layla. She's in a very interesting spot. We know that lunar reactions are likely gonna be hydro-focused, so there's a chance that we could see lunar freeze become a thing. If that happens, running Layla in a lunar team might become a valuable option, so that HP bonus might see better use. For all of these units, even without an Ascendant team, the bonus still works as a good ER and HP stat stick. The final weapon is going to be a sword from a world quest, Moonweaver's Dream. It has a 565 base attack, a 27.6% attack substat, and by default, the passive grants a burst damage bonus. The lower your unit's burst cost is, you'll get a higher additional burst damage bonus. 50 or 60 costs can get a mid-level burst buff. Meanwhile, anyone with 40 or below gets a higher buff. Focusing more on the burst passive instead of the attack substat, I've broken it down into categories for burst costs, and I've chosen characters where burst damage is a relevant source in their kit, though the list is also pretty subjective, so take it with a grain of salt. Characters with 70 or 80 burst costs are Lynette, Xingqiu, and Ayaka, so they're only using the base bonus. Units with 50 or 60 costs could include Kaya or Dendro MC for that mid-level buff. Finally, 40 costs or below. Kuching is probably the best option with an easily spammable burst ability. Then, Skirk's energy cost with Serpent Subtlety makes her cost 0. So if you run a burst playstyle over her normal attack playstyle, this bonus is a lot more relevant. On to some of the nicher options. Albedo is a defense scaler on his skill, but his burst is attack scaling, and with a 40 cost burst, he's going to make great use of that burst bonus, if you so choose to run that playstyle for whatever weird reason. Finally, Layla is in this weird category of it's kind of a meme weapon, but it also might actually be useful. She's not a damage dealer by any means, but her burst is pretty consistent in rotations. While she's not an HP scaler, the burst bonus is still pretty massive. I don't know, I'm not seeing it as meta, but to all you Layla DPS mains, especially burst DPS Layla, I think this is her new best sword. Anyway, that's gonna do it for this video. I hope this helped you at least better understand which weapon you might want to go for and build, and I also hope this inspired a few unconventional meme builds for you unconventional players. So let me know in the comments which weapon you're interested in, and which characters you plan to use it on. If you enjoyed, consider leaving a like and subscribing to support my channel. Consider joining my Discord server if you haven't already. As of this video, it will be the last pre-Nodcry upload, so, as a final message, happy farming for the new content, happy exploring the new region, happy 5 years of Genshin Impact, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time. Bye!